What's up? It's Wills, back with more Miata mods. We finally wrapped up all the work on the engine bay. Now we can finally move on to restoring my interior. Last spring, my old car cover ripped and I accidentally left the door open. And as you can see, the interior is in really rough shape and has become moldy and gross. So first on the to-do list for the interior is to replace my old Boss Frog roll bar. So you might be wondering, why am I changing out my roll bar? I already have one installed in the car. A lot of people like this roll bar. It's the Boss Frog roll bar double loop. I think it looks pretty cool, but to me, it's not like the safest option. Since there's this huge gap in between the two bars, there is a risk of if you did roll over, something could get lodged in between there. Something like a tree, a pole, a guardrail. So to me, this isn't really the safest thing. And since I'm going to be tracking this car, I want to make sure it's as safe as possible. So let's get the top off and I'll give you a better visual how this is way more dangerous than a roll bar that goes all the way across. As you can see, there's a huge gap between the two hoops of the Boss Frog roll bar. This is a huge safety risk in a rollover situation, since something can get lodged between the two hoops. Also, the Boss Frog roll bar is not as wide as Hard Dog roll bars or the Blackbird Fabworx roll bar that we're installing, so there's less side protection as well. Alright, so here's my new roll bar, the Blackbird Fabworx GT3 Gen 2 roll bar. This roll bar is a work of art. All the welds are amazing, they're really beautiful. Roll bar is made of DOM steel. It's laser bent and laser notched. It's also compatible with hard tops and soft tops, and it's 100% SCCA legal. So if I go to a track day, I won't have to worry about passing tech. This will for sure pass. So some of the features that set this roll bar apart from others on the market are, first off, the base plates. Most of the roll bars, including the one I had, typically have a flat plate that's welded at an angle, and then the pipe is welded onto it. But as you can see, the tube is cut to the angle of the plate, and the plate is all one piece, so it adds a lot more strength and rigidity to the roll bar. It's also a little bit wider than your typical Hard Dog roll bar, so it offers a bit more rollover protection on the sides. It also comes with an integrated harness bar. And lastly, you can't forget this awesome X brace with gussets. And I really love the gussets. It really screams track car performance. Looks pretty awesome. And it almost looks like a Porsche GT roll bar. And one more feature that this roll bar includes is that the mounting holes have notches. So this should allow for some up and down adjustment just in case holes don't perfectly line up. And for the rear mounting points, they're notched on the base plate and on the roll bar base plate. So this will allow a little bit of adjustment just in case if holes don't line up. And lastly, where it mounts to the seat belt is also notched. So this should allow for a little bit of side-to-side movement in case we need to adjust the roll bar once it's in the car. All right, so first up, we're gonna go ahead and get the seats out. They're held in by 14 millimeters. And we're gonna slide the seats forward and get the back ones out. So another reason I'm also switching out the roll bar is because, as you can see, the seat belts for the shoulders, they're running all the way down, straight down. When you have a harness, you want a much shallower angle, put it up on the screen. But when the angle of the seatbelt is going straight down like that, that's a huge safety risk. And it's also one of the reasons I stopped driving the car as well, because I didn't feel safe when I was driving it. The new roll bar comes with a harness bar where I can run harnesses at the proper angle. All right, next up, we got to get the rear wheels off and the car jacked up. All right, next up, we just have to pop off this panel held on by a few 10mm bolts. So this is the part where my install is going to differ from yours, since I got to take out my old roll bar. I'm not going to film too much of that, but once I get it out, I'll show you how to get the new roll bar in. All right, before we take this roll bar out, take a look at the way they chopped this. Previous owner really went to town on this. And check out this craftsmanship, man. This thing's dangerous. But since they chopped it so much, at least I hopefully won't have to do too much more cutting when I install my new bar. All right, right, now that we got the old roll bar out, let's go ahead and take off this rear tray, held in by a bunch of 10mm bolts. All right, before we go ahead and test the new roll bar, let's get this thing cleaned up. It's super gross and nasty. All right, all cleaned up. Go ahead and test fit the new roll bar. All right, so first up, let's go ahead and test fit it in the car, see if there's any other trimming we need to do. So it looks like we might have to do a little bit more trimming to get the roll bar to sit in. This side's all cut out. As you can see, drilling the holes on the corners made for a much cleaner cut. See on the corners, there's no overlap of like going this way and going that way. It's just a nice smooth transition. All right, now that I got the holes cut out, I went ahead and put some paint on it, prevent it from rusting. And next, I'm gonna go ahead and take some of this door trim. I'm gonna put it around the edges to protect the roll bar from getting scratched up when I put it in, but also to protect myself from getting any cuts from these sharp edges. All right, next up, I'm gonna get some of these wires out of the way so I can get the roll bar in place. And I can at least move them around and tuck them away. I think I should be fine on this side. Can move around the wires pretty easily, so I won't have to worry too much about clearance. So got the bar in, but it looks like we'll have to adjust these holes just a little bit. And my Miata has ABS, so it looks like I'm gonna have to relocate the ABS wire because this back plate is sitting right on it. So I went ahead and marked out the holes I need to drill. As you can see, the holes where my old roll bar was just need to be widened out a little bit. I'm gonna drill this one out, a new hole. And for the rear, this hole was where the ABS wire went through. That's gonna need to be widened out. And for this hole, I roughly marked it, but it should give me a good idea of where the hole needs to be drilled. All right, so to make the holes wider, I'm just gonna use this step drill bit. Then for the third hole, we go ahead and use a punch. All right, and then we'll just check to make sure it's big enough and go a little bit more. We're good. And then for the rear, I can't really fit my drill in there, so I got this long drill bit extension. Now that we have all of our holes drilled, I'm gonna go ahead and hit it with some spray paint to prevent any rust. All right, next up, we're gonna go ahead and make a new hole for the ABS wire. So instead of drilling a new hole, I'm gonna go ahead and use this hole that was from my last roll bar. Just barely too small to fit the plug through. So I'm gonna go ahead and just widen it up a little bit. So I sent out my seat belts to get redone with new webbing. They were redone by a company called Safety Restored. Tried to pick a color that was closest to the OEM belt, and it came out awesome. Brand new stitching, new webbing. They look pretty much brand new. It should be much better than the moldy and ripped up webbing that was on the car before. So now that these are done, we can get them back in and get the roll bar installed. And for this roll bar, we're gonna have to break off this tab before we install the seat belts again. They're pretty easy to break off. You can just kind of bend them back and forth. Just snap right off. So here's the original hole where the seat belt mounts. The instructions from Blackbird say we need to relocate this hole and move it as far inboard as we can. We're gonna move it to right about there. And this is where we'll drill our new hole. So I got the lower bolt in. So the reason we're relocating the hole is so that the seatbelt retractor works a little bit better, because we're not gonna be using the original mounting position for the upper seatbelt mount, which is this hole. We're gonna be using the inboard bolt hole so that it works with the roll bar. All right, next up, we're gonna go ahead and get this bolt that goes through the roll bar and the seat belt. All right, next up, we're gonna go ahead and tighten down all the bolts for the mounting brackets. It's gonna be a 9/16. Get a wrench that's gonna be on the other side. We'll just get them all tight. All right, now that all the bolts are in, I'm gonna take each one out one by one. Add a bit of Loctite. And I'm just going to repeat that for every bolt. All right, now that we got all the bolts Loctited, go ahead and trim out these trim pieces. So my trim pieces have already been trimmed from having the last roll bar installed, but I think I might have to do a little bit more trimming. So as you can see, so it looks like I'll just have to trim up just a little bit along here so it can sit flush. All right, so the panel fits now, but looks like I might have trimmed off a bit too much, but oh well. And for this trim piece, doesn't quite fit, so we might need to trim off maybe like a 1/4 inch or so just to get it to fit. All right, so this piece is all trimmed up. Turned out a lot better than this side, but that's all for these trim pieces. They all fit pretty good now. All right, now that everything's tightened up, going to get back on the fender liner. Alright, next up, we'll go ahead and get these panels back in. Alright, so got the carpet in place. Looks like we'll have to trim a little bit around here. Now the carpet's all trimmed up, fits pretty good. Unfortunately, since I had a roll bar before and they trimmed it here, it looks kind of janky, but at least this part fits nice and is contoured to the bar real nice. All right, got the seatbelt bolted in. I also added some of this rubber trim protector along here where the seatbelt runs, just to protect the seatbelt from getting frayed from rubbing against the metal. All right, so I got all the trim pieces back on. I don't have them bolted in at this time. I'm actually going to take all this out because I'm going to be doing a deep clean on this interior, but just wanted to test fit everything just to make sure it all fits real nice. But that's all for this install. Got my old roll bar out, got the new Blackbird Fabworx roll bar installed, got all the carpet and the trim pieces trimmed up, and new seat belts. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to keep following the build, subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Peace.